Hello and welcome to Drama Recaps. Today we will delve into the 2014 crime drama film named The Drop. Spoilers ahead. Bob Sajanowski begins by painting a vivid image of Brooklyn's dangerous nights. He explains how all the money in this place moves in a chain until it lands at a drop bar, a randomly selected establishment serving as a communal safe for the entire city's dirty money. Even the proprietors are left in the dark about when their bar will become the drop spot. Their only responsibility is to accept the cash, no questions asked. Bob's role is merely to manage cousin Marvin's bar and wait for such a moment. One evening, a group of men pays tribute to a long-lost friend with a complimentary round, something Marvin, the ex-owner of the bar, disapproves of. Bob defends his action by stating that even a decade after Richie Whalen's mysterious disappearance, he is not easily forgotten by the locals. Marvin also critiques Bob's preferential treatment of another regular patron, Millie, a melancholy older woman who habitually lingers late. Bob, despite his job's ominous nature and his reserved persona, is essentially a good man. He's a churchgoer and maintains a cordial relationship with the community. One day, while strolling through the streets, he hears a distant, distressing sound. Upon investigating, he discovers a helpless, injured boxer puppy whimpering in a garbage bin. After rescuing the puppy, Bob meets the homeowner, Nadia. Despite explaining his presence, Nadia initially reacts with apprehension. After capturing a photo of Bob for her protection, she introduces herself and invites him in. They tend to the puppy's injuries, and Bob learns of Nadia's previous work in animal rescue. Nadia corrects Bob's misconception about the puppy's breed, stating it's a pit bull, a breed often regarded as dangerous and hence difficult to rehome. Bob initially shares the common fear towards pit bulls, but Nadia elucidates that their ill repute largely stems from their owner's poor treatment. Nadia mentions that if the owner doesn't claim the dog within a week at the shelter, it'll be available for adoption. Bob requests Nadia to hold on to the puppy for a few days while he makes a decision. When he shares this with Marvin, his cousin advises him not to view caring for a dog as an insurmountable challenge. One night, post-closing hours, a pair of masked thieves storm the bar, demanding all the cash. Marvin attempts to negotiate with them, but the crooks are too jittery to engage. Bob observes that one of them wears a watch stuck at a particular time. Once the robbers flee, Marvin and Bob find Rardy, the bar's doorman, injured in a nearby alleyway. Following the ordeal, Detective Torres introduces himself as a fellow churchgoer to Bob. Torres begins investigating the robbery, and Bob shares the peculiar detail about the watch with him, further noting that only the cash register's money was taken, indicating no knowledge of the bar's illicit activities. Engaging in friendly banter, Torres points out how Bob consistently abstains from communion during Mass. Bob, however, rebuffs this observation, maintaining it's a personal matter. Post this exchange, Marvin admonishes Bob for revealing the clue about the watch to the robbers who didn't take the real haul. Marvin clarifies that the bar owners will inevitably demand the missing money. The next day, Bob attends the early morning Mass and heads to Nadia's to collect the puppy. Nadia hands him a dish and some food. Moments later, a visibly nervous Bob returns to confess his cluelessness about dog ownership. They embark on a shopping trip together, where Nadia imparts basic pet care knowledge. When it comes to naming the dog, Bob chooses Rocco after being inspired by a portrait of Saint Rocco in the church. As they drop Nadia off, a suspicious stranger observes them from afar, marking the beginning of Bob's life with Rocco. Back at the bar, the owner, Chavka Yumarov, confronts Bob and Marvin, demanding his money back and intimating threats with his injured henchman in a van. In parallel, Detective Torres probes into Yumarov's activities, suspecting Marvin's involvement in the heist due to his history with the bar. At home, Marvin devises a plan to rob the bar to afford his father's care, rejecting his sister Dottie's suggestion of stopping the life support due to financial constraints. Meanwhile, Bob and Nadia's bond strengthens over Rocco. Their interaction gets interrupted by the mysterious stranger who admires the dog, causing Bob to be cautious. Soon, the stranger appears at Bob's doorstep inquiring about Rocco. After Bob asserts his ownership, the stranger leaves but not before brandishing an umbrella in a threatening manner. On an outing, Nadia appreciates Bob for not prying about her bruises. She discloses that she injured herself with a potato peeler during a lapse. The outing ends when a waitress asks them to leave because of Rocco. Marvin shares his anxiety with Bob about the Umarov situation and his suspicion of being surveilled. In response, Bob informs him about the stranger who's been asking about Rocco. During a routine task of handling the trash cans, Bob stumbles upon a bag containing money and a severed arm wearing the stopwatch, suspecting it's the loot from the recent robbery. Bob disposes of the arm discreetly while Marvin commends his professional handling but chides him again for disclosing the watch clue. The mystery deepens when the stranger returns to the bar, sending his regards to Nadia. Marvin identifies him as Eric Deeds, a notorious thug, rumored to be behind Richie Whalen's disappearance. Bob should tread carefully around him. After disposing of the severed arm, Bob encounters Detective Torres, who informs him that the robbery investigation is ongoing. Detective Torres brings up the topic of Eric Deeds and his former employment at the bar. Bob, however, denies any knowledge of this. Following this, he drops Rocco off at Nadia's place and discusses Eric Deeds with her, resulting in a minor quarrel and Nadia leaving upset. After informing Marvin about the incident, Umarov pays them a visit at the bar, accepting Bob's offer of a drink and the recovered money. Umarov notes that the next drop will occur on Super Bowl night. Bob picks up Rocco, and Nadia apologizes for her earlier reaction. Concerned about Nadia's past relationship with Deeds and his interest in Rocco, he listens as Nadia confesses that Deeds is her ex-boyfriend, and things became complicated, leading to their breakup. Bob assures her that neither he nor Rocco judge her for her past. When asked about his association with the bar, Bob explains that Marvin is his cousin, and they've been acquainted for a long time. He reveals he used to be part of a crew involved in less legitimate activities but has since left that lifestyle to spend time at the bar. Concurrently, Marvin searches for Fitz, one of the robbery accomplices, to discuss a planned job during the Super Bowl. Fitz, however, wants to maintain distance from this job. As Fitz leaves, Marvin unexpectedly kills him by running him over with a car. Back home, Bob finds the umbrella that Deeds had taken placed in Rocco's cage. Marvin and Deeds meet at a cafe, where Marvin tries to mediate the tension between Deeds and Bob regarding Rocco. Detective Torres accesses Deeds' file and is intrigued by what he discovers about Deeds' past. Deeds threatens Bob, demanding $10,000 by the next day, or he will reclaim Rocco and torture him. Bob subsequently informs Marvin about the temporary staff for Super Bowl night and his suspicions about Marvin's involvement in the robbery. An enraged Marvin asks Bob to leave. The following day, instead of meeting Bob for the money, Deeds breaks into Nadia's home and forces her to accompany him on a date that evening. As Bob nervously caters to the customers at the bar while handling Umarov's dirty dealings, Nadia shows up with Deeds, escalating tensions. Bob confronts Deeds about his presence with Nadia and why he didn't come for the money earlier. Deeds is evasive and, after a brief call with Marvin, avoids any rash actions. When the bar closes, Bob, Nadia, and Deeds are left alone. Deeds is not satisfied with the money Bob hands him and insists on checking the safe. He threatens Nadia and demands to see Marvin. Bob reveals that Marvin was once involved in criminal activities and gambling. They once had a customer who ran up a debt but managed to win $22,000 in Atlantic City, enough to repay Marvin. However, for their safety, they had to eliminate this kid, who was Richie Whalen. Deeds was wrongfully implicated for Richie's disappearance. When Deeds confesses that he was responsible for Richie's fate, Bob swiftly pulls out a gun and shoots Deeds twice, instantly killing him. This act unveils his ruthless side to a shocked Nadia. Following Deeds' demise, Bob berates his lifeless body while Nadia struggles to comprehend what has just occurred. She requests to leave, and Bob reassures her that she will never be harmed again. Nadia promises to keep silent about the incident, and Bob expresses his distinctness from the people around him. Marvin, meanwhile, is outside, keeping a watchful eye on the proceedings. When Deeds' phone rings, Bob answers and finds Marvin on the other end, but neither of them speaks. Bob prepares to dispose of Deeds' body and visits Umarov and his crew with Rocco. Umarov informs Bob that he had a conversation with Marvin, and now Bob will own the bar. Concurrently, it is revealed that one of Umarov's henchmen executes Marvin from a distance. Bob now owns the bar and everything will be equal as long as he keeps Umarov's money safe. Bob experiences a deep sense of loneliness as Umarov leaves. As the new owner, Bob takes charge, pondering about the existence of the devil and God's judgment after death. The next day, Detective Torres pays a visit to Bob, expressing his condolences for Marvin, whose death Bob attributes to a carjacking. However, Torres suspects it was more like an execution. They discuss Deeds, who was seen at the bar the previous night. Bob explains that due to the Super Bowl night, he didn't observe anything unusual. Torres reveals that Deeds, like Richie Whalen, disappeared without leaving any trace. Bob remains reticent, simply stating that such incidents are common in the area, and Deeds might reappear soon, perhaps even in a mental institution. Torres then mentions that Deeds was in a mental institution the night Whalen vanished, contradicting the stories. Although Deeds had claimed responsibility for Whalen's disappearance for reputation purposes, the real culprit was never found. Before leaving, Torres shares his suspicions with Bob, leaving him feeling uneasy. Bob takes Rocco for a walk to Nadia's place, offering her the option to never see him again if she wishes. Instead, she goes inside to get her jacket, leaving Bob and Rocco excitedly waiting for her outside.